Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first in our Colour in the Creative Industry talks with Amit and Naroop. Hope you're well today. This is the first in our sort of a new monthly series where Amit and Naroop will be talking with different guests each month on topics of their experiences of shooting or working in the creative industry as a person of colour. I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping before I let Amit and Naroop introduce their talks. So obviously we're doing a Zoom webinar. If you've got any questions for anything, please keep them in the chat or put them in the Q&A function that you can find at the bottom of your screen. And I'll be introducing those questions to Amit and Naroop at the end of today's talk. Feel free to chat in the chat panel with our panelists and attendees. And I think that's it from housekeeping from me. So I'll let Amit and Naroop introduce their talks.
Alrighty. How you doing, guys? We are Amit and Naroop, and we are really honoured and privileged to be able to start this initiative about colour in the creative industries. We are just waiting for our guest Othello to come online. He's had a slight technical issue, but he will be with us shortly. But it gives us a chance to let you know a little bit about who we are and why we wanted to do this initiative with the AOP. So we are a stills and motion duo. We've been working together since 2003. And when we first started, we started on the street, right? The street was our studio, the street was our playground. And we used to photograph, aspiring models, actors, do kind of portfolio stuff, urban music artists. So we never really noticed that there was any sort of lack of color in the industry. If anything, we were just happy to be able to shoot and earn a little bit of money. But it's only when we actually started to get into editorial and advertising, and we started to go to meetings and events and kind of exhibitions, that we realized that the only other person of color that we would usually see there would be each other. And I guess in the beginning, we kind of just accepted it as, okay, well, maybe this is the way it is. Maybe, other people don't want to be in this industry. We didn't understand why, but we were kind of really new to it all. And I guess it's only when we actually started to, establish ourselves, started to, progress in our career, that we realized that, there's something not right here. There's so many talented individuals who weren't getting exposure, who weren't getting seen, who weren't booking work. And, it did upset us. It really did. And we thought, what can we do? So we started to do like personal one-to-one mentorship, where we would either get photographers from monetary backgrounds to kind of work with us on set, or we kind of do one-to-one mentoring, helping them, teaching them about our experiences and helping them try to progress. But ultimately, we could only have a small impact. You're dealing with one person at a time, and we want to try to broaden, that kind of that impact and help more people, really. And this is when we started speaking with the AOP, and we said, look, why don't we do something where we start talking about colour and the lack of it in the creative industries. And, maybe by speaking with different people from different parts of the industry every month, we can hear their experiences, share our experiences. But fundamentally, and most importantly, we can try to do something that can take action to really attract more diversity and allow people from minority backgrounds to really, get into the industry. And I'm talking about commercial photography here, not weddings and events, because, there is, I think, a lot of diversity in those industries. And funnily enough, whenever we tell anybody that we're photographers, they just assume we're wedding photographers. So, it's more about the commercial industry. So until Othello comes online, Amit, I guess we can maybe share some stories that we've kind of, any sort of instances we've felt that, our colour has come into play.
Definitely. I mean, the $1 million question, I was having a conversation with someone last week, is how different would our careers have been if we were maybe of a different colour or a different background? And reminds me of a story of when we first started out and we were setting up our business. We were trying to get work, and I had an idea and I wanted to actually test it. So I set up 2 email addresses.
This is when we were going to set up.
Yeah, we were setting up a little studio company, just doing portraiture. We wanted to work with, up and coming people. And I had an idea. I'll set up an email called Amit, and I'll set up an email called Andrew. And what was really, really interesting is we sent mail outs out over the course of a month. And what do you think got the higher open rate?
Andrew, probably, right?
Sorry to say it, but it did. But I thought about it and I said to myself, do we really want to build a business where we're not being ourselves? We're almost tricking people and pretending that
conforming.
Yeah, and we had to make that decision. And you know, Andrew's email got deleted because we were like, if we're going to do this, let's put ourselves out there. Let's not shy away from who we are. But it was interesting, and you know, I guess prejudice, wrong assumptions exist in so many industries, and often it's unconscious as well. But today is going to be really, really interesting. Othello is an extremely talented guy. Really looking forward to finding out more about his world, his background, the challenges he's faced, and maybe what we can all do to move things and steer them in a positive direction.
Totally. And, you know, just going back to this whole topic of, you know, of our names, I remember when we first started, people said, are you sure you want to go by Amit and Naroop?
What do you think they meant by that? Are you sure?
Well, people understand it. Firstly, no one can ever pronounce my name when I say it first. So when I introduce myself, I have to say my name and spell it. Hi, my name's Naroop, Naroop. Like, they just don't get it. But I guess from the beginning, we were adamant that no, our brand is going to be our name. This is who we are.
Yeah.
We can't change it. We have to be who we are. And now, I think our name is fundamental to our branding. Like, you know, Amit and Naroop, people kind of remember that now. But I think it does take a lot of work to get to that stage where you can say, okay, now we've really formed our brand and this is who we are. But initially, it was difficult. And I think the most, I don't want to say it's prejudice, but people that were most worried is our own family.
Definitely.
You know, because now I came from I went to a private school. You know, parents came here, struggled, worked really hard. And for me to say, look, I want to go into creative industries, knowing that, you know, I'd been to an amazing school and got a good degree, it was a tough decision. And my brother is also in music, same thing. But we had that family support, you know. And I think what we found, a lot of the people that we mentor is that the family, that kind of that family pressure really plays a big part, and especially in Indian culture. And we can speak from our own experiences that, you know, if you say to your parents, I want to take photos, they just don't necessarily think it's a real job.
It's high risk, isn't it? There's obviously there's the safer option. There's the you know the normal path, if you like, and then there's the risky path around the mountain. But you know, I don't regret anything we've done over the years, and I think in many ways we've been, you know, I've been extra lucky because there's been two of us. We've never felt maybe as much fear, as much uncertainty, as much doubt. Someone's at the door. Who's that? Is that Othello joining us now?
I'm not too sure.
Hey.
Oh,
hey!
Here we
Sorry,
are.
guys, mate. So you know what it is? I'm doing one on Saturday, and I got them kind of got mixed up with all the.
I think you've got to turn your video on.
Yeah, we can't see you, buddy. 1 second.
Okay, cool. Let's turn the video on. Oh,
There we go.
Hey, main man is here.
How you doing?
Yeah. I was me thinking I've got loads of time. 1 o'clock. Oh man, sorry.
Well, dude, it's great to have you here. We were just kind of sharing a couple of stories about ourselves and our own experiences.
Yeah.
But I guess if you don't mind, we're just gonna jump straight into it.
Yeah, let's go straight into it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
If you can start by telling those people who may not be aware of who you are and your work, how did you get into this industry?
Well, I've been taking photographs since I was a kid, and then I started doing more like getting to more like performance stuff. Attending I used to go to this place when I was a teenager called WAC in Camden, and I went to loads of theatre schools and stuff. And then I kept taking photographs, and then it kind of just continued from there. And then photography kind of kicked off first. When I say kicked off, we was talking the other day, and I did a lot of when I first started, like internships and stuff at different galleries. Did an internship at ID. I just kept taking photos, and then started doing lots of test shoots. Tried to be a commercial photographer, at first. Wasn't really, we'll get into that later about all the discussions about trying to get into the commercial industry. And then I realized that, I just thought, I'm not going to wait on people to give me jobs and stuff. So I just continued creating my own work and continued that route, and then carried on in the fine art route.
Amazing, and you've done some amazing work. I mean, we really, really love what you do.
Thanks.
But obviously today we're talking about colour in the industry, and the lack of it. So, and I guess we can just lead on for what Amit and I were talking about before you joined, which is the family aspect. And we were saying how, especially in kind of in the Indian kind of culture, I don't mean to kind of say that the parents are bad by saying this. Like, I totally understand when parents say, look, we want you to have a good job. It's because they in their mind, they want to do what's best for us. They've come from a foreign land to a new country. They've worked hard, usually doing 2 or 3 jobs to earn some money, to buy a house, send their kids to school, and want their kids to, and I guess a lot of time money is an indicator of success, and they want their kids to be successful. So when you say, look, mum, I don't want, dad, I don't want to do that. I want to follow my passion. Part of them, you know, for certain parents, it hurts them, you know. So fortunately enough, our parents were totally supportive. And I think that's one of the main reasons that we were able to pursue our craft for so long and establish ourselves and do what we do now. What was it like for you when you were kind of, how did your family react?
No, my family, because I've always been a bit of a creative person, so my parents kind of knew that anyway. Right. Obviously, my dad, when I was a teenager, was a bit worried because I was saying to him I was going to go into like and I kept saying I wanted to pick all the creative subjects. He was like, no, you're not going to get a job with that. But no, after that, they were really, my parents, I've got to say, were really supportive. The only thing they, you know, like most parents, they want you to make a living. And it's that kind of like stereotypical thing, you know, parents, they want you to be like, you know, get a house. And particularly like most parents that come from abroad, is that whole aspiration of you're going to have a nice house one day, maybe a little garage somewhere in the suburbs. And that's their understanding of, you know, doing really well. But apart from that, I've got to say that I've had like, huge support from the family in what I've chosen to do. And the more they see you progress in it, the more they're kind of happy themselves. Because I think for all parents, they want you to be happy. But obviously, when I was younger, it was the same things like the typical careers, like, you know, you make a really good doctor, you'd make a really good lawyer. And
exactly, would you want to do that? I remember that when I finished university, well, actually, just before I was doing my third year exams, I went for a job interview at an investment bank, right? And I'm in there and I'm dressed in a suit.
I can't imagine you in a suit.
Exactly. This is before the tattoos and all that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around and I thought, this is not me, man. This is not me. And this is before, I was 21. I hadn't even held the camera and taken any photos. I was 23. And I thought, this is not me. But something's kind of said, I'm creative. I can't do it. Then I kind of went home and I said, Mum, Dad, look, I don't know what I want to do yet. Right, because I was meant to work with my dad in his business, and unfortunately, the year I left uni, his business kind of he had to close it. So I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to do this. You know? And my dad said to me, he said, "Look, Naroop, there's 2 decisions I will never make for you. One is what you do for a living, and the second is in who you're going to have to marry." Weddings and stuff. He said, "Just do go where your heart tells you to go." You know, and that's when Amit and I start working together. But I know for a lot of people that family pressure is a big thing. And one thing we try to do is, even for our mentoring, is how do we help people from minority backgrounds who have this family pressure? How do we help them to overcome that? And in some ways, give them the courage to say, I need to do this. Because when you're you know what it's like, is a need, right? And if you're not doing that one thing, you're sitting there doing a job, but all you're thinking about is, no, I should be painting or drawing or directing or making props or whatever it is. Now, and it's difficult for us to kind of say, look, go against your parents, do what you want, follow your passion, because family is everything. So
but I think you've also hit it on a nail. It's like family support is a huge thing, because like for me to continue doing it, you know, as we all know, it's not much. You don't earn much, and a lot of the stuff I was doing was like test shoots, and you're not getting paid, and you're trying to get paid, and you do more test shoots, and then you move from test shoots to doing shoots, and everybody's like, they want you to do it for free. And I think when you have family support, it's a lot easier than some of the people, young people you're probably talking to who don't have that family support. So one, you got to think about how you're going to pay your bills or how you're going to live. And then also there's that thing of, if you come from certain backgrounds and you haven't had been able to come at, say, maybe your cultural background or your environment, how do you step into those spaces that where you're not comfortable with. So like a lot of people, young people I work with, our students, they go into a gallery is like a huge experience for them because they walk into a gallery and everybody starts staring at them because they're just not used to it, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, like we said, with family backgrounds, like my mum was a ward sister, so I was always visiting her ward. So it's like, there was like people from all different cultures. So I've had that upbringing of talking to people outside of my culture. But you imagine you're that person who hasn't had that experience, or you've grown up in a place that, you know, like somebody's just, you know, I'm not saying everybody goes from an estate, but you've grown up in an estate which is kind of like a certain environment, and then you haven't got the family support. How do you even understand how you can
100%.
grow into those careers? And the point at the moment is when I worked with one young guy called me up one time and he said to me, like, he was about 18, and he said to me, can he get some work experience? And he said this really amazing thing that I meant to meet him in Stratford, and he looked towards the city and he goes, there's a world there and there's me. I want to reach that world, but I'm in this world. But we're talking about London.
It's interesting because I've said a lot of times, I think the reason why Amit and I were able to progress in this industry is because I went to a private school, right? And this sounds really, I don't know, it sounds weird to say, but I was one of the few, you know, brown dudes in my school, but I was used to being in an environment where I was a minority. My whole school life, I was like that. So being around people, you know, who looked different to me was fine. We used to go on art trips, and I went to Latimer and Hammersmith, and that was a very artistic school. I used to love going to National Portrait Gallery with them, you know, all that kind of stuff. So when I stepped into this industry, it was fine for me. I used to go to meetings, and, you know, I would never feel intimidated because this is how I grew up, right? But for other people, you're right. I think, do they feel, okay, do I actually have to be myself? Like, do I have to put on a more posh voice? Will they understand what I'm saying? And I remember when Amit and I first started doing public speaking, and my brother's a performer, and he saw some of our talks, and he said, Naroop, just be yourself, man. Why are you trying to speak so posh? I said, am I? And he goes, just be yourself. And subconsciously, I was thinking I had to be someone else to this audience, to this different world who didn't look like me, who may not understood where I come from. But no, you just got to be yourself. And I think that's one thing we do say to people now is you don't have to change. Yeah. You are, because if anything, I think now, if you can stay true to yourself, people will respect that. They will respect that. It's difficult, but I think you should try to do as much as you can. If they can't respect you and understand you, when you don't want to talk to that person, you don't want to be with that person, they don't want to work with that person.
Yeah, but it's also, I agree, but also there's this thing about appearance. It's like, you know, people judge you in your appearance. And so, like, I could say, like, if you're a young black boy walking into a thing and you dress a certain way, people put, like, I'm not saying it has changed a little bit, but there's this kind of like stereotypical image. So when you walk into the door, they put you into a certain category already, you know.
So what would you say to someone like that? If they said, look, I want to be in this industry, but would you tell them to change? Would you tell them to stay as
No, I think you're right. You've got to be the same. But I've had experiences, and I remember meeting a guy who was a hairstylist years ago, and he said that he did a job the day before, and he went into the agency because he forgot something, and this was a job when he was working as a photographer, and I met him straight after because he said he liked my work, and he wants to meet me because hopefully we can work together one day. And when he met me, he was really mad. And I was like, what's up? And he goes, well, I did this job yesterday and everybody was fine with him. He turned up the next day, but he was just leaving home. He thought, let me go and pick up this stuff. Just threw a hoodie on, threw some casual clothes on. And he said the reception that he got was so different to the day before. But he was the same person.
Yeah.
You know, and so...
It's interesting. You know, appearance is a funny thing because when Amit and I did our Sikh project, right, where we photographed men with beards and turbans, and we did an international exhibition. We published a book and everything, and it was really well received. I was speaking to one Sikh guy who wears a turban, and he said to me, he goes, you know what? If you guys wore turbans, I don't think this project would have been as successful. I said, what do you mean? And he's still a brown guy. I'm a brown guy. He goes, because they would have thought that you had a hidden agenda. Like the fact that you guys have got cut hair and you're from Sikh, you're Sikh and you're brown, people think you're a little bit different and they will accept you. But if you had a beard and a turban, I don't think you would have been accepted.
Exactly.
Thought, wow, that is, it's that type of kind of prejudice, discrimination within our own colour, like within our own kind. It is in a way.
Definitely.
And I said, no, I'm not too sure about that, but that's the way they feel. Like, obviously he's got the experience of wearing a turban and having a long beard, so I kind of respect it, And he said, you don't understand. Every time I go into a tube or into a room, I'm very aware there's a turban on my head, and everyone's going to look at me.
Yeah.
And I go into a train. I don't think people look at me. I don't know how you feel about it, but I guess it's different. There's different levels of, how far you look from the norm. I guess there
is an acceptance. The way you dress is like you're an accepted. I've had it loads of times, particularly when I was younger. Like you'll say, like, "Oh, you're different." And what's different? Yeah. Because why is that?
Yeah. Different to what? So when you were studying, were there a lot of people from minority backgrounds in your?
No. So when I was at St Martin's, there was like 2 of us in the building.
Wow.
There was one other guy and myself,
right.
And again, that's part of the experiences that I've been able to deal with people outside of and going into the crane, able to deal with that, being the only person in the room. But I was the only person, and even sorry.
And what do you think stops, people trying to even study art and do photography? Why is there such a lack of diversity even at that very early stage? Because if they're not getting in there, that's the beginning of the funnel in a way, isn't it? You've got
at that time, a lot of people were saying that they wouldn't get in anyway. A lot of people said I wouldn't apply because I wouldn't be accepted, and then it was seen as kind of like privilege. If you go there, it's like I don't belong there. So you're only, so there's that. You're putting those barriers in yourself, and also getting into the art career. Also, like for myself and like parent generation, doing anything artistic is seen as a luxury. So there's that still installed in you, that doing this art career, which was an option to them. But I can definitely say to you that going into those environments when you're the only person, like my background would help me to able to navigate myself in those spaces. But you imagine if you're a person from completely, and it's still happening now because I'm still connected with some of these art colleges, and you go into these spaces where there's no one like you, and the things that you want to talk about and the kind of work you want to produce, and nobody gets it or nobody understands, and you just feel like you're on your own.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is down to money too at that early stage. I mean, you need to support yourself, and sometimes if you're from a minority background, you might be contributing to the household anyway, and you to go into and pursue a degree where you may not make money for years. I mean, Amit and I didn't make money for a good 7-8 years, I think, until we were in our mid to late kind of 20s. That's just not an option.
It's not an option.
I'm not going to I can't make money doing this. But the thing is, something needs to be done there, because I think that's the big issue. It's like, how do we create support for these people? So I've always said to people, we've always been firm believers that you just have to hustle to get it done. You've got to work twice as hard. Right?
Yeah.
If it means you get that other job, a side job that you don't like to do, just do it, because the only way that you should, the only reason you should really hate a job is if you think you're going to be there for the rest of your life. But if you purely treat it as a means to an end and think, all right, I'm doing this for 2 years or 3 years, I hate it. But guess what?
Yeah, but also
it's allowing me to do what I really want to do. So turning that negative into a positive, it's all a mindset thing ultimately. So that's what we try to encourage. We say to people, look, just find a way, because if you give up here, then you're ready on the back foot, and it only gets harder as you get older. It only gets more difficult when you've got more responsibilities, when you move up, when you've got rent or a mortgage or a kid. The younger you can do it, I believe, I don't know if you agree, is better.
But also there's a thing about opportunities as well, because like when I think I was speaking to one of you the other day, it's like when you do want to cross over and start making a living, and people still want to not give you that opportunity. You might have the skills. Like I know so many creatives, photographers, artists that I know in my circles. Lots of people have given up because they just wasn't given that opportunity. And it takes a really strong person to keep going. And I know lots of talented people have just walked away from it because they were never presented, and they tried the photography route, and it wasn't because they weren't talented, but just that the opportunities they weren't getting those jobs.
So have you had experiences like that where you've been somewhere, maybe gone to show your work, and then someone's looked at you and kind of judged you straight away, thought, no.
That's why I switched. That's why I said I've always been interested in more the fine art route, but that's one of the reasons, my biggest reasons is fine art, because I'm much more in control of my own journey doing fine art. But I remember turning up with my portfolio one time, and I remember someone said, "I love your work," and I turned up to this agency in Covent Garden, and as soon as I walked through a door, the same person who told me that she loved my work, straight away she was going, "I just don't get your work," and she was turning the page, "I just don't understand your work." And I was like, this is weird, because we had a conversation a couple of hours ago and you invited me in, and as soon as I've walked in, there's this whole excuses about not understanding my work. So there's things like that. And also when it comes to, like, I spoke to some of my friends, I've got friends from all different cultures, and sometimes I talk to some of my white friends and I say, well, this is what someone wants to pay me for a job, and they say, that's ridiculous, Othello. And I'm saying, but actually, when it comes to commercial work, sometimes where I want to charge a certain rate, they always like, oh, it's a bit much. So I'm always, or it was an experience they've been with another photographer first, and then they come to me because the job wasn't done well, but it's always they negotiate in a lower fee. So my fees are always being lower. And I've tried to explain to some of my friends that nobody wants to pay the fees that you're getting. So they will always come to me with a limited budget, but they would go to somebody else and they would have a bigger budget. And I've experienced so much of that in my career.
Let me ask you a question, Othello. If you were of a different colour, perhaps if you were white, do you think your career would have progressed further and quicker?
Let me give you, I always like to give examples. I sat with a couple of friends in an apartment one Saturday night, and I was like, I'm going back to my studio. One of my white friends said to me, Othello, I could never work as hard as you. He goes, man, you're going back to your studio? I said, yeah, I'm working on this project and I want to carry on working it. And he turned around and said to me, I just don't work as hard as you. He goes, man, you work really hard. And that's an example of what he's talking about. He goes, man, you work really, but his career is somewhere else than mine.
Yeah, I get that. I think that's sometimes about us. You know, would we have got further, well, not further, got here quicker? Because I'm happy with that. You know, I think we've worked really hard to get where we're at today, and we're shooting the stuff that we want to shoot, right? And it's interesting. I was speaking to Amit about this, and I said, Amit, how many times do you think we've had prejudice or racism against us? And I said, you know, I can't remember too many blatant instances, right? But he said we don't know whether we've had prejudice against us, because it could happen behind the scenes where your work's just sent. You know, you're put forward for a job, but they just don't select you because they think, Amit and Naroop, you know, who are these guys? Like, they sound different. I don't know if I want different, you know? So that you can get that, but it's just not in your face. But, you know, what can you do to counter that? And on the flip side, our work that has got the most respect and got us most recognition has been work about our own culture. You know, so there is that openness there. And I was speaking to somebody yesterday and I said, look, you know, the fact that we're from a minority background and we've got this whole heritage, right, that other people don't, right, that we can bring forward into our work. Because I'm always turning up negative, not negative, turning something that we feel is holding us back into something positive. Like, how can we use this to our advantage, right? And I think if we can create work that is so different that only we can create, that no one else is, you know, can do that because they haven't got the same link to it. But no one else could have created the Sikh Project apart from another Sikh photographer, because we've got the connection. We were born and raised in Southall, in West London, where there's, you know, majority Sikh population. Families, you know, all Sikh. Uncles, grandfathers all wear turbans and have beards. So we can do that. We're so connected to that. You know, I think that's what made that project so powerful. And if you connect to those roots and you kind of say, look, we believe in this work, people will take notice, you know. And I think that's one way we can say, look, diversity is so good because we can bring something so fresh, you know, into the industry, you know.
Yeah, I have started a different approach, because I kind of like, I do some work that's sometimes related to the culture. Maybe through the commissions, because a period that I was getting a lot of commissions through galleries based on Caribbean culture. And then my personal work was I wouldn't say opposite to that, but it was much more, I would say, much more conceptual. And I was getting that and I put it into it. But I kind of now in the stance that I would do the work that relates to me and it comes to me, the work that I truly believe in. And it whether it connects, I don't really say that it connects that I'm particularly a black photographer or a black artist. I'm just doing the work that relates to me, that I feel that I want to put out, and I'm true to myself. Yeah. And obviously my culture does play an important part in that, but also as my environment, my social surroundings, my family background, that plays an important role. But I don't really think too much about, am I this black person bringing this? It's what I bring to that, and it's the whole of me that I bring to that, which incorporates a bit of that as well.
Yeah, but the thing is being a black man is part of who you are. You know, I think it's good to be individual. I think, fair enough. Some people might not want to make that a big part of their work, but for us, I felt it was important that we did something because we are so passionate about our heritage. But one thing I listened to in an interview that you said that when you had your you had a show at Camden Art Centre and you put all the images in these gold frames because you went to the National Portrait Gallery and you thought, oh, I've never seen a black man in a gold frame. But isn't that saying that same kind of link that you wanted to show your heritage in this?
Yeah, I said that I do play in the heritage sometimes, but I don't really want to. My heritage is part of the work, but I don't consciously say I'm a black photographer, and I play with these little symbolisms, like sometimes, like I said, the gold frames, and the gold frames was my experience of going to these spaces. When I went to the National Portrait Gallery, I'd never seen black people in these frames, so I thought, wouldn't it be great to put black people into those frames?
Yeah. But I think it does take someone like you who's got respect, who's got who's created this amazing body of work to sometimes do something that is a bit blatant. Sometimes being subtle isn't enough, and sometimes we just have to kind of say, look, like, you guys got to take notice. Like, we've got so much talent here, and it's only when like there are protests or something really big happens that the wider community actually thinks, okay, there's an issue here, because we feel it, day to day, we'll always feel it, but can someone else ever understand what it means to us to be from a
but I also think what's powerful is that we're doing it and we haven't given up. So I think that speaks.
How many of us are doing it? That's the question.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that is really hard. It's just to keep on doing it. Is to keep on doing it and being that person. And I'm also very honest about the struggles that I've been through to even to get where I am now. I'm very well, and I can't deny that this recent thing with the Black Lives Matter movement has changed a lot of things. And I give credit to the generation 18 to 25 because they've changed a lot of things, but even people older than them, because a lot of these conversations wouldn't be happening if that didn't happen.
Something big had to happen in order for us to even have this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. So no, I think that's really important. But for us, when we speak to a lot of, I'm going to talk from my Indian experience. When I'm at the gym, for example, people stop us and say, "Yeah, Naroop, you're that photographer." Yeah, no, I'm trying to get into photography. How can I get my work seen? People, I'm not seeing to booking jobs. I think, they don't. I think it's maybe some Indian stuff. And sometimes I don't even know what to I don't know how to respond to that. Like, what would you say to somebody? Like, there's no one thing that is gonna get you noticed. I know that it's different things on different levels, but I guess what we're trying to get from these conversations for anyone who's listening is, what can we do? Like, what can we do for the masses to try to help and create diversity? How do we get more younger people into education of the arts? How do we get more people, into commercial photography? We need to, between us, think of these things and actually have an actionable, steps. What would you say?
I think role models are key. I think if when we started, one of the ways we got really good at photography is we bought loads of copies of GQ magazine, cut all the sheets out and stuck them in our room. And I realized that all of the photographers were maybe 50 plus, maybe white, maybe from privileged backgrounds when I looked them up. But that didn't stop us at all. I didn't think, there's no Asian photographers shooting for GQ or this or that or that. So many people argue now, that there should be more role models, for example. There should be more black artists at the top level, more Asian photographers at the top level. I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that. I really don't think that's the most important thing. I think the most important thing is taking action every week and just having that undying self-belief. I never walk out the door and think, I live in Windsor, right? So like, I never walk out the door when I'm walking my dog and I think, I'm an Asian guy today. I need to
I'm the same, exactly.
I'm like, I'm just doing my thing and everyone loves me. And I hang and I've got so many different friends from so many different backgrounds. And I think the key is to just keep it moving. And I think, yes.
So, to interrupt you, so what would you say, what has enabled us to get to where we are in our career compared to somebody else?
I'd say self-belief. And I'd say we haven't got hung up on the fact that our skin is a different color maybe to other people. Frankly, I rarely think about it. I rarely think about it. I just, we're artists, we're businessmen, we're doing our thing. And
so if someone said to you, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, because, we've both done the work.
Yeah.
So if someone said, but dude, I work hard, man. This is all I do.
But you can't you can't pin your lack of success on your race, though, can you? I mean, there's 1,000 other factors.
No, but some people do feel is that.
Yeah. But then how can you prove that? How do you know your work's not good enough? How do you know you didn't say the wrong thing in the meeting? There's so many factors.
These are all,
I'm kind of in between the two of you, because I'm like, do you know what? You keep working at your work. It's what someone told me ages ago. Like, just keep working at your work. Believe in your work. And I always tell young people, listen, do what you've got to do to survive while you're making your work, but make the core of it your work. So anything you do, put your work first. Like I teach sometimes, but at the end of the day, I always tell everybody, they said to me, they always offer me contracts. Do you want to go contract? I say no, because when I'm at the university, I give everything and I'm there teaching. But I don't want a contract because primarily everything about my life is my artistic career. So I say to them, do whatever. I did everything. I worked in bookshops. I worked at galleries. I was an invigilator. But just do what you do to keep surviving, to keep making the work you make. You want to do.
I think it's important to switch it and turn the tables and think from a client's point of view and think to yourself. I think the reason people get commissioned to do work is two factors. Is one, will I like that person and get on with them? And two, will they deliver for me? Those are the two factors I personally believe affect why one person gets commissioned and why one person doesn't. So if you go into a meeting or if you have an approach and you're not fully committed, you've just shown a lack of confidence in yourself, and you're asking someone to spend money, invest in you, but yet you don't believe it yourself.
And we've always said that the reason why we feel that we've been able to be successful is because we've got because of our personalities and who we are, right? And we always try to be nice, be kind, be happy, have fun, right? And I think is trying to have that magnetic aura around you where you draw people to you and they feel comfortable with you and they feel like, wow, these guys are going to deliver what I need. Because if someone's going to give you a 50 or 100 grand budget for a big advertising job, they're going to want to know that you can deliver, right? And I think if you could instill confidence, right? And I think our attitude to that has helped us along. And I remember I was speaking to another gym story, a girl in the gym who stopped me and said, I'm really struggling to make it as a photographer. What camera, what lens do you use, right? So I immediately sensed her personality that she was quite introverted, that she felt quite awkward. She wasn't comfortable talking to people. So I immediately steered the conversation away from the equipment. I said, look, a major part of photography isn't the equipment, it's who you are as a person. Like she was telling me she was trying to shoot a subject and he wouldn't put his shoulder down. And I said, your lens and your camera is not going to help that shoulder go down. I said, you have to help that shoulder go down, right? And I'm trying to draw it into that aspect of it and say, this is, a really important part of portrait photography is your relationship.
Don't you think what we were saying in the beginning also plays an important part of that? Because all of us, like you went to public school, I've had parents who've had different friends from mum's jobs, my dad's job, friends from different cultures in and out of my house. So we've been able to walk into spaces, even though we're being the only person who's comfortable.
Yeah.
But you said about going into these spaces and your personality and confidence. But if you're not used to walking into spaces where you're the only person, that also lowers your confidence. Because it's easy for I can say it's easy for myself to do that because I've grown up with other people from different cultures and going to my parents' workplace and talking to people and friends and stuff. But if if you have never had experience of that and you walk into a space where you're the only black or brown person in a space and you have to deliver your work, automatically, you're going to feel sometimes a little bit less confident. And also the history of what you've told. And you say that if you look at the magazines and you say that you've looked at it and there's not many people of colour being shooting these magazines. So already you're going there thinking about, am I going to get the opportunity? Then you're not used to those spaces. And then you've got to, deliver yourself to an environment that you're not used to.
Yeah, well, I guess it will come down to like, how do we build self-belief and confidence?
But it's practice, and it's like it's trained like a muscle. You know, you need to. Not every. I've seen people's confidence shift over years. People we mentored that were really shy initially 2 years ago, now they're like king of the world, and and fundamentally it's come down to training it and to practicing. And I think there's so many things you can do even when you're not shooting or painting or drawing, just practicing those skills. And you said that word, navigation, navigating through people is key.
It's interesting what we did. We did this masterclass once years ago where we had 6 people that we were kind of training at our studio. And we said to them, after the first session, next session when you come, we want you to do a talk in front of all of us. And they said, a talk? We've come to learn photography. And we said, look, trust me, you have to learn confidence of speaking in front of people, of having all eyes on you. Because when you're on set, you're the master of that. You're the captain of that ship. Everyone's looking at you for guidance. And when they were doing it, they were physically sweating because they were so nervous. But once they did that, they felt so good. Because, okay, I've overcome this barrier. Now I feel comfortable being in an environment where people are looking at me and I can speak up and be who I am. You know, so you're right. I think it is just...
Can I throw something in here? Because there's sometimes like, where even though you're talking about confidence, your confidence could be detrimental. Because I've had experiences when I've walked in really confident, really articulate, and I can almost sense a bit of fear in the person that I'm talking to.
That could be.
And I've experienced that and myself. I've met a couple of art directors before, and soon as I start talking, it's just this like, I can see it. And I've even had one say to me, "Oh, you're very art school trained," and I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm looking for someone raw." But I can see a sense of sometimes like a fear, like you're articulate, you're having a conversation, you're on their same level as them, and there's this. I sense it. No one else pick it up, but I'm getting this sense of fear from them, and they're almost looking at you like, "Who are you in front of me?"
But is that a race thing? Because there's people who could be...
I don't know, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
White guy could be overly confident. We'll think the same thing, like, dude. Like,
yeah, I didn't say race, but I said, but the things that you pick up yourself,
I
and you're trying to work it out yourself. Is it because of my colour? Because you're not sure, but nobody else will sense it, but you will sense it. I've had those experiences when no one's picked up these little things, these subtle little things, but I am feeling it, and I noticed it, and I'm experiencing it, but you wouldn't be aware of it.
I think that's where mirroring comes in. I think you got to change your frequency according to who you're dealing with. You know, if you're high energy, super confident, that doesn't work with everyone. If someone is like one of these art directors, a bit more gentle, etc., you've got to speak that language. And I think that's where just surrounding yourself by different cultures, different backgrounds, different earning brackets, everything is fundamental. It's so important. You know?
One thing I found really interesting is when you do a lot of these, if you do any sales course, they always say mirror your client, like make your client feel comfortable, right? Just because you're trying to win that business. So if it was two white people talking and the white sales guy was trying to mirror the other person and make you feel comfortable, they're just doing it because they want to get the business, right? But then if we come in as a person of color and we try to mirror it, people say, "Oh, why are you trying to conform to be like that other person, to make that person feel comfortable?" But you're not. You're just you want to get the business. You're not trying to be something for them. You're just trying to present the best version of you so you can, get the job in. So I don't think there's nothing wrong with trying to present a version of you which you feel is going to be right for that environment. We're in business at the end of the day. We do a service for money and get paid for it. So we have to present ourselves in a certain way so we get that job in. But I don't think that's necessarily racing. Do you know what I'm trying to get out with that?
To a certain extent, I think again it's so difficult because I know there's so much talk now about racism, diversity, all these buzzwords, everything floating around, and I think you have to be very, very careful not to go too deep into it. And to be like, okay, it is harder for me, because I'm of this colour. I think you've already set yourself up for failure, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Like you've just basically self-doubted yourself. It's like if you're having a boxing match, you go and you think the other guy's going to knock you out. You shouldn't have got in the ring because you are going to get knocked out. So I just think that, this conversation is really, really important. And I think if there are any people from, different ethnic backgrounds watching this, my frank, blunt advice would be to focus on what you can control, not what you can't control. You can't control other people's opinions, right? We all have that unconscious bias. We all make wrong assumptions, And you said something really interesting. I was on your website and I was looking at your masculinity Project, and you said that I think you've done it for one of the reasons. You said a lot of people assume that you're maybe a gay guy, right? Doing this thing. I have this little dog I walk around, and people assume I'm gay because I have a little Yorkshire Terrier dog, and I find that fascinating. That today still everyone makes wrong assumptions.
Yeah.
They do, right? And it's like it's really interesting, but it's also really exciting when you understand that and you know how to navigate that. And there's also something fun about pleasantly surprising people as well. So I think that, look, you know, it's not an easy industry, but I think every industry has its challenges. Every industry has, you know, prejudice. And I think you just have to make that decision on how you want to look at it. You know, whether you want to play the victim, you know, whether you want to say, oh, people stereotype me, people assume this about me, or whether you want to go out there and do something about it, you know. And I always believe that as artists, we have a brilliant tool that we can create work that, you know, many people, we can control our fate, you know. We can, if you put the work in and you graft. I've seen your work, it's exceptional.
That's what I said to you. I continue doing the work because I have that thick skin. I don't look in the mirror and go, I'm a black person, I'm disadvantaged. I go out there and I continue making the work, but I have that level of confidence in myself, in the work, and believing in the work. Like you said, mentors, like I've spoke to people when I first started and they said to me, Othello, just concentrate on your work.
Yeah.
Which,
I think it's interesting. I think fundamentally what I'm trying to get from this is trying to inspire those who are, you know, at a stage in their career where they want to progress, you know, and make it as a pro, or even just go into art school, to give them some, you know, some advice and some confidence to make them kind of do it, you know, because I think that's where it all kind of starts at that level. When you look at the people from people of color who have made it in certain industries, they always tend to have something about them that is extra special, that they kind of, you know, they've got some sort of flamboyant personality, or they're just, you know, they've got this charisma and charm. So I think that's something that comes to them naturally because they've, you know, they might have taken a few blows along the way and they've realized that they've got to have thick skin, and they develop this personality where they're used to having attention. So I know, I guess that's what I'm trying to come from. And hard work is all, you know, hard work's important for everybody. If you don't put the work in, you ain't going to get there, full stop. Yeah. But I do think there is it could be a person who does everything, who ticks all those boxes that you say, who still feels that they're getting discriminated against. And I think... But
I also got to add as well, is that there is a generation now who we say are working hard, but they are working equally as hard, but they don't want to be part of the system anymore. They don't want to be part of these old organizations. They are doing their own things. And we spoke about the other day, how they make money, but they're not looking at these platforms anymore. They're like, listen, they've never really recognized us. They're not even thinking about them. And they're just going out, using Instagram, doing their work. And they are creating their own music videos, shooting other stuff. And they're creating their own kind of, not say their own, but their own networks, which is outside of these established networks. Yeah.
And which is great, which is something that, you know, people feel that they might have to do, which is fantastic. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to, we've got 10 minutes left or so. We're going to see if there's any questions. Kevin's there to let us know if you've got any questions that people want to have answered.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation, guys. It's been really, really good and interesting. We had a lot of chat in the chat panel. I guess I'll just go through it in the chronological order we got questions in. So from Noel in the chat, Noel says, "Hi guys, how do you find being a person of color working or trying to work with larger established brands?"
Well, I'll just use an example. We recently did this big job for Adidas, 5-day shoot over December, January, and it didn't make a difference to us at all. If anything, they treat us with so much respect, which was fantastic. And I think that just comes with, I guess, when you're at a certain stage, when people are giving you so much responsibility, they know that you've earned the privilege to be given that responsibility. And they kind of, they won't kind of second guess you. You know, they kind of give you the respect to say, look, we hired you because we know what you do. And on the kind of big commercial jobs, I personally don't feel it. I don't know about you.
I never feel it. I really never feel it. And I think it's so hard because I think, like I said, touch on is an issue. It's not that we can ignore it, but at the same time, I just think the way we are, we've just trained ourselves to just focus on the work, our personalities, and what we can control, and we don't ever we don't ever devalue ourselves and go in and think, oh, you know, we're Asian or this or we're colour. That has no relevance in many ways. You know, for us, that's my opinion. I can't read other people's minds, but all I would say is to other people out there is don't undervalue yourself.
Yeah, true.
You're making it worse for yourself.
I think there's a question from, is it Janice? Yeah, Janice wrote a question as well about having, what's it? I can't remember, is it? About mentorship. Like, I've had quite a few people that give me loads of advice earlier on. Even someone, I mean, like Janice, she's worked at the Turbans Gallery, and when I graduated, she was the first person to say to me, have you thought about doing workshops? And someone who has helped me along the road when I first started. But I think when you said it's like definitely going and talking to young people in schools from an early age I remember like recently, last year, I went into a school and they called me up and said, look, we haven't got much budget, but can you come and talk? And I walked in and this little girl, she just sat there staring at me and she goes, I've never met anybody like you. And she was so like excited, and I saw the change in her. She was like, she asked us a question, she was asking me questions again. How did you get to where you were? But you just the expression on her face when you saw someone like me walk in. I mean, that made a massive impact.
Like me, what did you mean? Did you mean your personality or was your colour?
No, it's just that someone of colour. I mean, just someone of colour who's coming and doing what I'm doing. And there's not just
that you were doing what you were doing.
Yeah, she was just like so happy to meet someone like me, and I'm not like, yeah, I know. I dress in a particular way. I'm very artistic and doing the work that I do. She was just smiling all the way through. You know, I've had loads of experiences when I've been in schools with boys, and I said to them, it's like, you don't have to be what people want you to be. And I say, look at me. Like, I've always had people challenging me, like questioning me, like, are you this? Are you, because of the way you are you gay because you're a little bit more open, a little softer as a person, you're in touch with the feminine side? And I said, but listen, you just got to be who you are. And I think once I see, sometimes I see a man like me walk in, and someone's like, you're given the opportunity to be yourself.
100%.
You know? And I think that's the important thing.
When Amit and I first started doing public speaking, and we'd go on stage at different events at the AOP or Phase 1 or whoever it might have been, and we walked on there and we were the only faces of colour there. I actually loved it. Do you know why? Because I said, here is our chance to represent our people. This is our chance to show that we can do things, and now you guys have to listen to what we have to say. And I didn't feel intimidated. I thought, this is our opportunity. Let's smash this. Let's show them that we are just as good. And I think that's any situation that we've been in. If we know we're in an environment where we are, the only ones like us, we use that as a positive. Okay, this is our chance to represent. Let's do it. Let's give it 100%. Or even go 150%.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Because I know this is going to be on YouTube. I know there's going to be some kid there watching it, and I want that kid to think, wow, he looks like my uncle. Like, I can do it. Like, I want that. Whereas other people might say, oh, what's going on? Oh, no. It's flip it, reverse it, make it positive. And that's.
But was that installed from you from a young age? Because my mum, from a young age, always said to me, listen, you're going to have to work double hard. And install it to me. It's like, never do if you've done your best, make sure you do 3 times as much as that.
My old man's always been one of my most important mentors. Like, just work hard, do what you love, you get one life. He did say to me something really interesting. He said, Naroop, in life, you're always going to pay the price at some stage. Either you pay the price when you're young, or you pay the price when you're older. If you pay the price young, you work hard, you can establish yourself, and you have a life that you live that you love. Or if you mess around a bit, you don't plan it, you're going to pay the price when you're older, when you haven't got retirement or savings, or you haven't got that life. So he goes, decide when you want to pay the price. And I said, you know what? I'll pay the price now when I'm young. So we just worked hard, positive thought, no plan B. Never had a plan B, it's always a plan A. There was a plan B. What's the plan B? We both never had jobs. I've got nothing on my CV, nothing.
I'm the same.
So is this or nothing, man? Like, no one's gonna do it for you. And I remember from a few shoots that we did where, I'd look back at the images early on. I think, I wish I changed that light or done that. And it kind of instilled this idea in me that if you're going to do something, do it now. Don't think about it. Make that happen now. Do the best you can. Be all you can. Make the changes. Do it now, and don't ever look back and regret and think, I wish I had done that.
But isn't it a learning curve though? Because you always look back in your work, and you're always going to keep improving. Because I'm always looking back. I shot that a few years ago. Now look at it and I can pull it apart, thinking I would have done it this way now. But that's only because
but
experience.
That's always happening.
Yeah.
All right. Should we go to the next question, Kevin?
Yeah, so we've got a question that it's been a bit of chat about social class in the chat that I'll roll into one question. So Nuala says that parental pressure also comes from social backgrounds. I'm white, but my parents were uneducated and worked really hard. So I followed their dreams to provide for them. It wasn't a bad experience, but I had to wait 30 years before I could follow my dreams. And then we had another question from Conrad in the chat who says that, do the speakers feel that class and culture is also a key factor in discrimination within the creative industries? I know, Naroop, you've said that you grew up and you went to a private school where you learned sort of confidence. Would you say that class in that aspect ties into other elements of prejudice in the creative industries?
Well, you know, even though I went to private school, I would say that we were never upper class. We were kind of middle to, no, I'd say middle class, maybe. My parents literally sacrificed their own, you know, livelihood, their own kind of luxuries for mine and my brothers, so we could go to private school. So I think it does to a certain degree, yes. But I think that's an internal perception of who where you feel you fit on that ladder of class. Like, you know, Indians heritage is known for its class system. You're untouchable, or you're like at the top, or you're somewhere in the middle. So we've always come from this heritage of like, you're put in this certain class and you can't move. And we've always felt, no, if you work hard, you can be in any class. You can work your way up. And part of, you know, I guess the reason why Amit and I kind of think we've made it is because we had each other to always encourage the other person. Like, there'd be times that I'm down and I'd speak to him and vice versa. But I think that, you know, if someone feels like, okay, I don't fit in right here, sometimes it just takes that moment to think and say, look, you know, this is my moment. Like, even though I might not feel comfortable, I have to build up the confidence to feel like, you know, I totally belong here. You know, I can speak to everybody, even though you've got a little twang in your accent or you use certain words. I don't think that you should let that hold you back. If anything, I love it when I meet somebody who's different, who can speak a little bit different. I find it intriguing. I want to ask them a million questions. You know, so again, it comes down to that perception thing. Personally, I don't know what you think.
I agree. Valid point. Othello, what do you think?
Yeah, I also I kind of believe it a little bit. Even though we don't, like, my family don't talk about class, but I can't deny that both parents are professionals, and I grew up around black people who were professionals. So I've had that in my life. So I've had role models like parents, friends, like one parent's an accountant, whatever. None of them were doing anything creative, but I have seen, I've had black professionals in my life, and that has really shaped me a lot. Having those people, maybe not doing what I wanted to do in the future, but just seeing people who are excelling in their own careers was a great help for me as a young person.
Right.
And so anyway, it's not class, but just being able to see black people who were excelling, and they obviously didn't get as high as they wanted to during that period, but they were doing their best, and they achieved as much as they can in their time, and that did shape me a lot.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally, I get that.
So it is about seeing people who look like you just giving you the confidence that you could one day be in a similar way. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So we got another question it's a comment from Louise Hager. Just going back to your experiences about the fees you get for your work differing. So Louise says, Shaniqua Jarvis was talking about this on Jem Fletcher's podcast about how her fees differ significantly for commercial jobs compared to her white photographer friends. Agencies think we don't discuss our fees amongst friends, so maybe this needs to be more widely transparent so people of colour, particularly black photographers, aren't offered lowball fees. It's crazy that the fees change based on colour when it should be based on your talent, your experience in doing the job, and the usage of imagery.
How do you know that it's based on colour though, and not work quality?
Yeah, we've never had our fees be lowered. I'll be honest with you. Like, our agents have kind of always said, like, you know, what do you guys charge? And our fees are definitely, from my knowledge, in line with what another white photographer would charge.
But I think, again, how can you prove that it's down to the work quality, the reputation, versus the colour of your skin? That's
Base it on somebody the same level as you are, because I know that.
How do you differentiate same level as you?
Exactly. But I can't say that every time it's been there, because not when it comes to the fine art industry and art commissions, I haven't experienced that. But I do know that there is, when I talk to some of my friends, I know you can't always say it's about colour, but I have spoken to some friends that you got charged, you charged that, and I've experienced when I said like, and my friend said, no, I thought you should charge this fee. And I've put that fee in, and it's straight away like, oh, that's a bit much. And then some of my friends who are getting that fee. So I don't know what to say it's always about colour, but I know that I've had discussions with friends saying sometimes you undercharge and they say, I'm getting this fee. So I would, and they'd given me that advice in the past when I was doing more commercial work. So I would give the fee that I was suggested, and then it would be like, can we come down on that? And it would be a lot lower.
Isn't it budget though? Because there's certain jobs that we've had to do, and if we're really into the job and we know the budget's a little bit less, we'll reduce our fee. You know, so that's one side of it.
Would you say part of the experience of minorities in the creative industries is this anxiety that it might be a colour, because you will never really know. But as a person of colour, you have this added, you have another thing that perhaps might be going against you. And it may be true or not, but would you say that's something as a person of colour is constantly in your mind, whether correctly or not?
It could be in your mind. I mean, if it comes to a point where you're up against 2 or 3 other photographers for a job and they choose someone else, you always, you might think, why didn't I get that job? Was it because of who we are? Could it be personality? I like to think, that is ultimately it's going to be down to the work, like who's got the right work for the job. I would like to believe that's the world we live in. For someone to judge you and say, no, that guy's Indian, he can't deliver it. That person must be, very narrow-minded, like in my opinion. And that's one of the beautiful things about art, I think, as well, is that the first thing you see is the work, and then you see the name, and just judge someone on that. If they're not a nice person, that's a different story. If you're from a minority background and you're not nice, then guess what? You're probably not going to get picked anyway. So all things considered, if you're a nice person and you can deliver the work, then I don't think, you should be discriminated against. But
I think you should be, but I've got to admit that I haven't experienced it as much as some people, but I definitely have had discussions with other photographers or other creators of colour who say they've experienced it. And I can't say that their experience is not right, because that's what they felt. I can only, I can't say that every experience is based on the colour, but I can base it on conversations that I've had with friends who have felt that.
But a lot of people get prejudice, man. Someone could be overweight and then someone might not want to, they might not.
That's true.
Look, I've had people say stuff to me when I'm walking down the street. It happens. And part of me kind of think, all right, well, look, this is the world we live in. There's some really narrow-minded people out there. I'm not going to let that stop me. This guy's obviously got some problems. And a lot of the times when someone shows something negative towards you, it's because they've got something negative in here. And they're just putting that out in the universe. So I feel pity on them a lot of the time. You do, like, if you feel like that, but
But again, we're talking about we've continued going. But like I said, there's lots of people who just wasn't getting those fees and getting jobs, and they've given up because they've really put everything into it, but just didn't, and they couldn't survive anymore, and they just walked away from it.
But the other important factor, and this is what I was saying to somebody, I was talking to them on the phone yesterday. I said, just think what we're trying to do for a living. We are telling the universe that we want to do this job that we love to do, and we want to get paid good money to do it. Majority of people, 95% of people, do something they hate for money. So the fact that we're trying to do something we love for money, it has to be hard. It should be hard. It shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't be given to us. We should have to work hard, because what we want is so rare. We're trying to create this life. We want this one thing. Yeah, we're going to face obstacles. Some of them is going to be prejudice. Some of it is going to be racism. But if we want that thing enough, we have to keep pushing. We have to keep moving forward. So I just think that's one thing. We have to realize that there are always going to be obstacles, and race is one thing, but there's a load of others that we've got to jump over as well.
But I've got to say that most people I speak to, they know the obstacles. I mean, nobody goes into a creative career thinks it's going to be easy. But everybody I spoke to know that it's not going to be an easy career. It's going to be a difficult career. Maybe they've, like you said, families are opposed to them doing that career. They know the journey, but that doesn't put them off. The journey doesn't. Go on.
We bought a studio after 2 years, built it. It took us a year and a half to build it with Amit's dad, and we thought this is going to be easy. We're just going to take nice photos and we're going to get loads of work. And then he was 22, I was 24, 25. We had this amazing studio and zero work. because we had no one telling us any different. And there are people like that because we've been there and we've done that. We've made all the mistakes, you know. But you know, that's I guess life as well. We've learned from them. Any other questions, Kevin?
No, I think that wraps up our questions for today. And I think looking at the time, we should probably wrap up now as well. Right. Do we have any final thoughts we want to give our listeners today?
I'd just say remain optimistic. Focus on what you can control. We hope that seeing people like Othello, people like us, you know, we are in this exciting industry full of opportunities, and as challenging as it is, there's a wonderful feeling of when that magical job comes through, that buzz, you know, you can't beat it. So I would honestly say is work on yourself, work on your resilience, your confidence. You're going to need those no matter what career you do, and ultimately focus on what you can control. But conversations with people are always brilliant. So I would encourage interaction. The AOP is a wealth of knowledge on the website, so many wicked contacts. It's amazing how much you can get out of having a coffee with someone. You know, people underestimate just half an hour having a coffee with someone can change your mindset completely. So if there's someone you admire out there or you want to get in touch, just hit the button and don't do it. Don't procrastinate. And you never know where stuff can go.
Yeah, I would echo what Amit said, and also, have confidence. It is difficult, but I'm a firm believer in persistence. You know, if you keep knocking hard enough on that door's going to open at some point. You know, and we're examples of that. It took us, I'd say, 14 to 15 years for us to get to a point where we thought we were successful. So, you know, it's a long road. It's a long road, and you know, part of the fun of it is going down it. You know, just going with the highs and the lows. It's the creative industry. What can you say?
Yeah, I'll say the same thing. Just keep going. Even the lows are amazing, because you know, in this career, it's even the low parts are an amazing part of your career and helps to grow in your career. That I think some of the lowest points have been probably some of the most creative points in the career. And like you said, I would just keep going, believe in your work, and if you have to take, you know, a side job to do it, do that. But as long as you just keep working on your work, and I think that's the most important thing. And like you said, reach out to people. Like, I'm always open to people to reach out. People come to my studio, ask me questions. Someone called me yesterday. I'm always, if I've got time, I'll always be there. Someone wants to get some advice or wants some, you know, just come and share some work with me.
Sure. Same goes for us. Exactly. Yeah, we'd love to do that.
All right, brilliant. Thank you, Naroop. Thank you, Amit, and thank you, Othello, for today's conversation. And thank you all viewers for joining us for our first Colour in the Creative Industry talk. The next talk will be announced soon, and that will be happening next month because it's a monthly series. This talk was recorded and it will be going up on the AOP website for you to watch at a later date. Once again, thank you all for coming, and goodbye.
Cheers.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.